Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:04 p.m. on Thursday, July 25th, 2024, and I call the Committee on Public Safety meeting to order. In the council chambers today, I would like to welcome Committee Vice Chair Toba and Council Members Dos Santos Tam and Tupola. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in the following order: in person in the council chamber and remotely. In person and remote oral testimony will be allowed when each agenda item is taken up. Before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record. Each speaker will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When your name is called, please proceed to the podium. When the timer goes off, please conclude your remarks promptly. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. I will then proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. For those who are joining us by telephone only, I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. When your number is called, please listen for the prompt to unmute and press *6. Persons who have not registered to testify remotely will be given an opportunity to offer testimony. To indicate your desire to speak, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or press *9 on your telephone. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. HRS Section 92-3.7 requires that all votes at remote meetings be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Mahalo. Moving to agenda item number 1, Resolution 24-158. This resolution confirms the reappointment of Mark Dexter to serve on the Citizens Advisory Commission on Emergency Management of the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on March 31st, 2029. And let's see, with us, let me see if we have the appointee today, Mark Dexter. Is he with us today? No? I see Director Toya with us. If it's okay, Director Toya, I will just proceed to testimony first, and then we'll have you come up right after. Thank you. Clerk, do we have any registered in-person or not registered in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Are there any remote testifiers, whether registered or not?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. So now we'd like to welcome Director Toya from the Department of Emergency Management. Aloha, Director Toya.
Aloha, Chair and Council members. Hiro Toya, Director of the Department of Emergency Management. The department is in strong support of Mr. Dexter's reappointment, I should say, to the Citizens Advisory Commission on Emergency Management. He's been an exemplary member and continues to play a leadership role on the commission and has been providing us with advice throughout the course of his term.
Thank you, Director Toya. Members, do we have any questions for our director? Seeing no questions, thank you, Director Toya. If seeing no further questions or testimonies, members, we are in discussion. With no further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-158 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you again, Director Toya. Moving to agenda item number 2, Resolution 24-159. This resolution confirms the appointment of Gerard Gibson to serve on the Fire Commission of the City and County of Honolulu for a term to expire on December 31st, 2026. And I believe that Mr. Gibson was not able to join us today, but we can proceed if there's any in-person testifiers or testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing no further testimony, members, and no questions since Mr. Gibson is not here, members, we are in discussion. Seeing no further discussion or questions, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-159 be reported out for adoption. Any further discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 3, Resolution 24-190. This resolution accepts a monetary gift to the city valued at $25,000 from the Honolulu Police Community Foundation for the Honolulu Police Department's use in purchasing unbudgeted expenses. And we'll proceed again with any in-person registered or non-registered testifiers. Clerks, do we have any?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Do we have any remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing no testifiers, I believe we have with us from the Honolulu Police Department, Acting Major Michael Kunishima. Aloha, Major.
Aloha, thank you. Acting Major Michael Kunishima with the Honolulu Police Department, Community Affairs Division. We request that you guys accept this gift from the Honolulu Community Foundation. They always support the police department and they help us purchase unbudgeted items. So I'll be here if you guys have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Major Kunishima. Members, do we have any questions for the Major? I had a quick question. I was just curious to know what kinds of unbudgeted expenses these usually cover.
So a lot of times the chief, he has certain items like we're planning on updating the AEDs. So they're going through contracts. So last time the Honolulu Community Foundation was able to purchase AEDs for the additional AEDs for the department, or have unbudgeted items like now we have a new TAC vest that the officers are able to wear and a new belt that helps them carry their weight load on their belt. So those are some of the items that would be used to purchase items for the officers.
Thank you so much, Major. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Members, we are in discussion. Yes, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you. Just letting you know that I filed the disclosure for this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Tupola. Okay, seeing no further discussion or questions, the chair recommends that Resolution 24-190 be reported out for adoption. Any objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving to agenda item number 4, Bill 37, 2024. This bill relates to overt video monitoring. And we'll now proceed with any in-person testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered in-person testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now proceed with remote testimony. Do we have any registered or non-registered remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. With us today from the Department of Transportation Services, we have Mr. Tony Valdez, Executive Assistant. Aloha, Mr. Valdez.
Good afternoon. Tony Valdez, Department of Transportation Services. DTS is basically in support of the bill as it's stated and open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Valdez. I have a few questions, if that's okay with the members. I was just wondering if you could share with us some numbers and some information about the Skyline cameras at this moment. How many cameras does Skyline have?
I would have to double check with, to confirm it. I know Chair Morton had sent out an email explaining the breakdown.
And maybe if you don't have it with you, then if
Yeah,
you
can I
wouldn't
get it to
mind
you?
providing it
Sure.
when you're able to locate the email. And so some of these questions might be related to them, and if you don't have those answers, if you could get them to
So
me
in
or to the body.
responding to a question, actually, in an email to CORE, Director Morton had stated that we have about 1,600 cameras, including 32 real-time cameras in each train. Additionally, we have 4,000 cameras on buses and handy vans. So that's about the breakdown. But I'll follow up and get more information for you.
Okay, thank you. So pertaining to the 1,600 cameras on the train with the 32 real-time cameras, what is the primary purpose of the cameras?
Basically, it's security purposes to monitor any type of activity. I know, in the past, we have gotten requests, UIPA requests for video. I think there's a limited storage, so I'm not sure, I can find out more information on that and how it's being used.
Yeah, that would be helpful. I did have questions about how the footage is stored. I was also curious to know, you mentioned that there's 1,600 cameras total, so 32 real-time on the trains, on each train. Where are these? Are they at the stations? Are they on the outside? Where are these cameras located?
They're situated throughout the four-car train, and they're pointed inward. I believe there's 2 cameras pointing outward, and the same for buses. They have cameras outside. For the train, I know that they use the footage for certain contract provisions with HRH, with Hitachi, in terms of if there's a delay and Hitachi claims that it's because of something that happened on the train, then they have to go through the footage. My understanding is that the footage isn't retained for a long period of time. So I'll get more information on that.
Okay. So right now the cameras are on, and you mentioned the Hitachi. Are they the ones who maintain the footage? Is someone watching
They're the
footage the whole time, or
they're contractor for the operation and maintenance, yeah.
so who monitors the cameras? Are they being monitored, or is it just later on then the footage is just reviewed if
I have
necessary?
to confirm that for you. I'm not sure if there's on-time or real-time monitoring, or whether they only review it if there's a complaint or.
The duration of the contract.
With Hitachi, I have to, sorry, I have to double check. I don't want to hazard a guess on that.
Okay. Another question regarding Hitachi's the one that's maintaining the footage, and you mentioned they hold on to it, but you're not sure. If you could clarify for us how long the footage is held, what the duration of that is
Sure.
as well. And I think that would be a great start for us to understand the scope of the cameras. I was also wondering what the distance is for how far these cameras can reach. Like you said, it goes inward to the train, but there's also some at the stations, correct?
Correct.
So if we could get information on that, the distance of how far the cameras reach and their scope, that would be
Okay.
really helpful.
Sure.
And we can email these questions if
Okay, yeah,
Director
I'll follow up
Morton,
with your
if
staff
that would be
on that.
helpful. Okay. Members, were there any further questions? Yes, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you. I noticed in the bill, so the bill is to allow for overt video monitoring in the city rail system. As a bus rider myself, I've also noticed that the buses themselves have cameras on them. Where's the authorization for that in ordinance?
There's a general authorization under subsection A4, but thank you for your question, because it raises, Director Morton and I talked about different things about the bill, and so this is me. This is from me, former OCS person, whatever. I read the original bill. I read the original. The original bill was 98-50, Ordinance 98-59, and when it was created. And what I get is, it's a fixed location. And you look at all the definitions and all the scope of it. It's buildings, it's roads, it's streets. So there's a genuine question of whether this applies to cameras pointing inward on the transit vehicles. We've never raised the question because we're just doing what we're doing. But if the council feels that DTS needs to have that specific authority, then, like they're doing for the rail, then you can amend it to include bus and the van, the handy van. But for the most part, when I read fixed location, I'm looking at structure. So, the cameras outside of the transit stations or inward in the paid area or wherever they're situated. So the cameras on the train and on the bus and on the handy van, they're really for security purposes to protect both the riders and also the drivers. It makes sure everything's, kosher, that sort of thing. So I know I didn't answer your question.
No, I appreciate that. I was actually sort of approaching it from the opposite direction where, I've gotten a little bit of constituent feedback about this bill saying, well, as I go around town, and if I were to take the rail, I don't want my to be monitored in this way.
Correct.
And I said,
yes.
okay, I understand that concern, but if you're using the rail, you're likely to also be using the bus, and the bus already has security cameras, and so what's the difference? But then that got me thinking, well, where's the authorization for the cameras on the buses in the first place? And so maybe this is a good exercise in exploring that question a little further.
I agree.
Thank you, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam. We'd like to welcome to the chamber Councilmember Say. Members, are there any further questions for Mr. Valdez? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Valdez. Members, we are now in discussion. Okay. Well, thank you for the question, I think that you asked, Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, very valid points. I know that the intent of the bill was related to the public safety, specifically for the Skyline rail areas, but very valid questions that we need to explore. From my understanding, I really want to try to find the balance of public safety along with making sure that we ensure our public safety with our cameras. But that's something definitely that we can go in and discuss further. Any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion at this time, the chair recommends that action on Bill 37, 2024 be postponed to a time and date to be determined by the committee chair. And the purpose for this, I'd like to make some technical amendments to address some privacy concerns as well as some of the discussion that we had today while getting some of the feedback from our DTS in order to make sure that we have the right vehicle as we move forward to keep our station safe, but also make sure that people's privacy and their rights are being respected. So any further discussion, any objections or reservations on the postponement? Hearing none, so ordered. Thank you. Moving to agenda item number 5, Hawaiian Electric Public Safety Power Shutoff Program. Thank you so much. Joining us in the council chamber today is some representatives from HECO. If you don't mind, I would like just to have our clerks see if we have any testimonies in person or remotely. Clerks, do we have any in-person registered or non-registered testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Do we have any remote testimony?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you very much. Seeing no testimonies, we will now like to welcome Jim Kelly from HECO, who will be providing us a brief presentation. For your information, the presentation is available online as Miscellaneous Communication 337-2024. Aloha, Jim. Mr. Kelly, the Vice President for Government and Community Relations for HECO. And you can introduce who is joining with you today from your team.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chair and council members. Yes, I'm Jim Kelly, Vice President of Government Community Relations and Corporate Communications at Hawaiian Electric. With me is Shannon Olivato, who is our Director of Government Relations, and Nancy Bernal, who is our Manager of Government Relations. So thank you so much for inviting me here today, and thanks for asking about our public safety power shutoff, which has gotten a lot of attention already, and I really appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions and explain what we're thinking about with this. So we start with this very colorful map, and it's on our website. And the purpose of this is to make the point that while public safety power shutoff, and I'm going to just call it PSPS, is probably the most prominent element of our wildfire safety strategy. It's only one piece of it. And there's a lot of other things that are going on right now because we really want to make the point that we want PSPS to be the last line of defense. We want to do a lot of other things before we ever have to get to the point of shutting off the power to keep the public safe. And so this map, this drawing kind of goes through all of the different things that we're working on right now. Speaking of cameras, we just we're in the process of putting cameras on our substations. These are AI cameras that actually look for any evidence of fire starting. They can identify smoke at a pretty far distance. These are used by utilities in California and across the West. They've been very effective in being a really good early warning system on any potential wildfires starting. We're putting in weather stations across our service territories, which is going to give us more visibility into what's actually happening in particular areas, wind speed and humidity, those kinds of data points, which are really going to be important when we make the decision about whether to call a PSPS. There's lots of other things on this. I'm sure you could spend time looking at it. Some of the other things we're looking at are changes to our equipment, for example, what they call covered conductor, putting insulation on the power line so if they did fall down, it's not falling directly onto the ground, that they're insulated. That's just one of the many tactics that we're looking at employing over the next 5 years. So I'm sure some of you have already seen this. This is the map of the PSPS area on Oahu. It covers, it's all on the west side, a little bit on the north shore. This is a closer look, and if you haven't done this, I invite you to go onto our website. We just recently upgraded these maps so that you can type in your address, you can type in your street address, and I'll tell you whether or not you're in the PSPS area. So that's pretty handy to know. This covers about 2,400 customers on the west side. We've worked to limit the impact of potential PSPS by putting in devices we call sectionalizers, which enables us to turn off power in one area, but limit the circuit, the scope of the potential outage. And we're doing even more of that work going forward to make sure that we can really make these areas much tighter, much smaller, so if we have to do a PSPS, that it affects a smaller group of customers. So this is really important for people to understand, and we've talked a lot about this. We've done a number of community meetings on the west side and really want to make sure that people understand kind of the criteria that we're looking at when we would consider doing a PSPS. You'll see on the top there's a number of factors that go into us standing up what we call incident management team, which would be making the decision about whether the conditions are right for doing a PSPS. It includes a lot of inputs from not only our own weather data, but National Weather Service and field observations. We have people actually out looking at things. When we get to the point where we're considering it, there's three primary factors. One of them is persistent drought conditions. If there's been a drought and there's a lot of potential fuel available, then that's going to be one of the factors. Second is going to be wind gusts. This is obviously very important. If we're looking at wind gusts above 45, 50 miles an hour, that's going to be one of the criteria as well. And then the third point is relative humidity, which is going to be below 45%. Again, that's providing that environment where fire can flourish. Now, along the bottom there, I really want to emphasize this. I think we're all kind of used to the idea of the red flag warning that the National Weather Service puts out when conditions are dry and the winds are up. I really want to make sure people understand that just because you hear there's a red flag warning on the news, it doesn't mean there's going to be a PSPS following on that. That's like one thing that we're looking at. It's possible there would be, but it's not an automatic trigger. There actually haven't been that many red flag warnings over the last 10 years. In only 4 of the last 10 years has the Weather Service put out red flag warnings. Now, there's also another category called fire weather alert, which is different from a red flag warning, but it basically just means, hey, you know, we're looking at the conditions. There's conditions that suggest that we're in fire weather, meaning it's hot, it's dry, winds could be kicking up, but that's not the same as a red flag warning. So people have asked, well, geez, are you guys going to be doing this like every other week? And based on the historical data that we've looked at, it's typically doesn't get to be as windy, you know, 45, 50 mile an hour wind gusts during the summer months as we get in the winter, you know, December, January, February. So based on historical weather data, no, we're not seeing as this is something that would be happening on a regular basis. But weather is unpredictable and we're doing our best to stay on top of it. So this is also, all of this information is on our website, but probably the first part of this is the most important part. People ask, okay, well, what kind of advance notice are we going to get? And we want to really try to give people as much notice as we can, and we are aiming for at least 24 hours notice to say, hey, we're looking at potentially doing a PSPS, get ready. You need to get ready your own house, your own business, and get ready for it and really pay attention to what kind of notifications that you're getting. I can't tell you that it will for sure be 24 hours. I mean, it depends on the weather, it depends on the situation. Everything that we're doing is about keeping people safe. And if we are erring on the side of safety and we feel like we need to call a PSPS very quickly on very short notice, be a PSPS. What happens during the PSPS is you get the note, could be days. And during that time, we're going to keep people posted on what the situation is. We're going to over-communicate. I've said all along, people are probably not going to be happy about PSPS, but if we have to do one, I don't want anybody to say, hey, I didn't know anything about this. This is the first time hearing about this. That's why we're really putting so much effort right now into communication, meeting with the community. We're also investing in what's called message broadcast, which is a special system we're going to get set up so that people are going to get multiple messages on every kind of communications device that they have, email, text, phone calls, over and over, repeated, if we're going to be doing a PSPS, and then during the duration of the PSPS, so that people will constantly be kept updated on what's going on. Now, obviously, the main issue with the PSPS is, when's it going to be over? Okay, it's over, the winds have died down. We have to then send our crews out to make sure that we went through this effort to keep everyone safe. We've got to then check all of our equipment and make sure there's not things lying on the ground, there's nothing that's broken, there's no lines that need to be reattached. And so that effort can take a while. I mean, we're going to literally go along every section of line that we have, go by every substation, every transformer, and make sure that during this event that something hasn't fallen down, a tree branch isn't leaning onto a line. We've got to check all of that. If there's repairs that need to be made, that's when they're going to do that. And we're going to really work to get the power back up as soon as we can, but it's at the tail end. We really are going to need people to be patient with us because we don't want to re-energize until we're absolutely sure that the system is safe and that there's nothing that needs to be fixed. And that's going to be part of the process as well, and we will communicate during that part of it. We have already, if you don't have your Hawaiian Electric mobile app, make sure you download that. The important thing is you got to be able to click on there and accept notifications so that you can get the information there. You can follow our social media. As I said, this message broadcast system that we're going to have up by, I think, the end of August will be really a great tool to use to make sure that we're constantly connecting with people the way they want to get information, whether it's, again, by a phone call, text, email, however they want it, they can sign up for it. Again, all this information is on our website. One of our key messages is we really want people to be prepared. It's not unlike being ready for a hurricane. You want to be ready to go if you have to. The good thing about PSPS on Oahu is that potentially you can pack up and you can go someplace else for the duration of the event if you have someplace you can go. And with that, I'll happily take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. I had a couple of questions for you before I turn it over to the response, is to think of the not obstacle, but the burden that it will place on the community, but how will this benefit them in the long run?
It will benefit them by removing the potential for an ignition from one of our pieces of equipment to start a wildfire. As we've worked with folks on the west side, we've come to understand that wildfires are pretty common out there over the last 10, 15 years, that there have been some big fires, 2014, around then, that start back in the valley, and we've heard some pretty harrowing stories about the threat of wildfires there. And we've worked with community partners like Eric Enos and those who have been around for a long time. So what we want to make sure is just we take off the table the potential for a fire starting from our equipment. And believe me, we know what I don't even want to say inconvenience. I mean, it's a major impact to people's lives if we have to shut off the power. And that's why we want to make sure that we're doing it right.
Thank you. And I did have a question. You mentioned that it'll impact people's lives. To find that balance again, and when this has to be done, how can we address the need for those residents in the areas that will be affected if they rely on electricity for some kind of medical device, or a health-related thing that they need to have, and they need power to use it?
Sure, that's a great question, and that's one that's come up. We've been meeting just about weekly with Director Toyo's group, HFD, HPD, and that's been one of the key questions around this, is how are you making sure that people who rely on medical equipment get the notifications? And so right now, that's what we're focused on, is the communication part of it, to make sure that we have people that are registered in our system right now, because if we have to shut the power off for doing work or something, we got to give them enough notification they can make other arrangements. But we're doing an outreach that is going to be, we've had ads in the paper, and we're going out, so we're sending letters. We're working with the Department of Health to make sure that we're identifying the people that do use medical equipment, and that we have them in our system to make sure that they get a special communication in the event of a PSPS that might be imminent. So they're definitely knowing about this. At this point, we don't have the ability, as they've started to do in California, to offer things like batteries, or they're offering special, I think, discounts on batteries, that kind of thing. We're looking to see if that's something that we can evolve into.
That was one thing I was wondering about. And I think I appreciate you saying that you're trying to get the information out to communicate, get the residents educated in what's necessary. That's really important. When you talked about in the presentation how you notify people, you mentioned the app, and I can't speak for all of the districts, but I think across the board in most districts, when you have our kupuna, or those who didn't, they're not used to having devices or using apps, they'll come and tell me, like, I don't want to check my email, I don't know how to do it. So those people who probably are the ones that will be affected by having medical equipment that they need, how will you get the information to them if they're not the type to have the smartphone with the apps and the notification push throughs?
Sure, no, that's a great question, and that's one that we're really focused on right now. We're working right now on putting out door hangers. If there are people that we have either done some outreach to and we haven't heard back from them, because we're asking people to confirm that they got the information that we're giving them. And if we haven't heard back from them, we're going to go out and put door hangers. We may have people going door to door. Yeah, we're very aware of that's not how everybody gets their information. We're hoping that, again, with this message broadcast system, that if people want to get a phone call, that's what they'll get. We also want to make sure, and our communication is trying to focus not just on the west side, but on the whole island, because if you have auntie who is in the area that's affected by a PSPS, I'm hoping everybody's going to try to make plans and make sure that they're aware when there's a PSPS as well, or that there might be one, so someone can make arrangements with family members that they can take care of it.
Thank you. I had just a few more. Thank you,
Sure.
members, for allowing me the opportunity to ask my questions first. You did mention that you've been working with Director Toya and HFD, I'm guessing even HPD. I kind of wanted you to expand on that. How is HECO coordinating with both city and state agencies in order to make sure that when this is happening and we're working together, what is happening as communication and coordination is taking place?
Yes, they will be among the people that when we talk in that first stage that the weather is looking right for us to start thinking about a PSPS. We're going to be in close touch with HAWAIIAN, with the fire department, police department, all of our emergency responders, first responders, emergency agencies. They're a key part of making this work. We've already held, and we just had our last one last week on Maui. We are doing tabletop exercises where we bring all of the first responders, emergency agencies together, and we walk through, okay, how would this look if we did a PSPS? And then we throw all kinds of different scenarios at the group to work through that. And from that process, we've obviously uncovered things that we got to work more closely on, and that we're, coordinating to make sure that there aren't things that we've forgotten about. The good thing, I guess, is that we are not a national leader in PSPS. We're following on the hard lessons that California utilities in particular learned over the last 7 or 8 years, the mistakes that they've made, the best practices that they've now lean pretty heavily into. We've hired consultants from California who've worked on this, and we're really hoping that we can skip a lot of the missteps that they took when they first did this and have our system. Our plan is to be the best that we can be, the best in class in terms of wildfire safety and PSPS in the next 3 years.
Thank you. Members, I actually turn it over to you, and I can follow up if my questions were not answered. Are there any further questions? Yes, Councilmember Tupola.
Thank you so much, Chair. Aloha, Mr. Kelly. Thank you, everyone from HECO, for being here. Obviously, this map is is all my district. I don't know if there's houses in that top Kaena point, but I have a number of questions, and this is not for me to grill you. This is for me to help work with you guys on this, because I think in a very real way that you're gonna need my help to kind of reach all of these people. So my first question is, you said that you had community meetings. I wanna know how many, with who, and how many people attended.
I don't have the list in front of me, but I know that we've had, the 2 that I attended had over, we've done neighborhood board meetings, and then we had just a meeting in Maili with just on our topic, and there were over 100 some people that were there that night.
How many
but I can get you the full list.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Sure.
How many people do you estimate are within this area?
There's 2,400 customers, but that's counting the electric meter. That's how we count customers. So in a house, obviously, you can have more than one person.
So maybe 2,400 households, maybe with multiple people inside the household.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So I guess my question is, because 2,400 residents, and if you've maybe talked to, let's say, 200 or 300, we're still kind of far from the goal. So have you divided up this area into sectors or sub-segments so that we can kind of fine-tooth comb who are the leaders, who are the main groups within those areas?
Yes, that is exactly what we're doing. We're also sending information directly to the people that are in this area. So all these people are customers of ours. So we either have them on email or mail, and we've sent them numerous already, I guess I'd have to say at least 3 notifications about this coming, and then we're continuing to keep them, making sure this is top of mind and that they know this is out there.
So what subsections do you have, or sectors that you've divided it into? How many?
I don't know if we've done it by subsector. I know that we've done it trying to reach out through neighborhood boards, through elected officials, through the people that we've worked with out in the community on other projects that are people that know a lot of other people.
Okay, I would like to work with you guys on this because there's actually natural boundary lines in my district that we should naturally work within because there's already segments of associations, of churches, of et cetera. So we should get specific about the areas because I think in the event that this does happen, right, I think you guys are doing everything you can, but really it's going to be on the ground boots of people that are telling each other and talking to each other, of which, you know, we could easily do a phone tree with the main leaders in each of those sections if we know what the sectors are so that we can identify which ones have the most amount of kupuna that might need generators in what area. And I appreciate that you're working with Department of Health, but I just can't even imagine that they wouldn't even know all of those nuances within the neighborhood, but our community does, so.
Sure, no, that would be super helpful and we'd really appreciate the opportunity to do that. I also want to make the point on the maps. The maps show the extent of the PSPS area. That doesn't mean that if we did a PSPS, the whole thing would be out.
Yeah.
It may just be 1 or 2 circuits, but that's
Which is
to know.
good because maybe what we can do is we can try to lay that over
Yes.
where your actual shutoff points would be and see if those fall within natural boundaries so that we know how many subsections we have. The next question I have is, in the event that we do have various areas that have the PSPS, would there be also traffic signals shut off and street light shut off?
Well, if you look at the map, and we did this intentionally, we avoided Farrington Highway almost completely. I know that we've talked to HPD about the areas that would potentially be affected and needing traffic control, but for the most part, we have avoided that. But once you get past into the valleys, then you're gonna, if there's traffic lights, that probably would be affected.
Well, it's better internally than on Farrington for sure.
Yes.
I guess the next question I have is there any type of upgrades that you guys would do that would make this not necessary or less necessary?
Yes. Right now, probably right this moment, we have crews that are out looking at every piece of equipment, and not just on Oahu, on the other islands where they're affected as well, and looking at every pole, every transformer, every line, and making sure, okay, is this leaning? Does that pole need to be replaced? Doing pole inspections. They're also making sure that the tension on the lines is correct so that if there's a heavy wind, they're not slapping into each other and dropping sparks on the ground. So they're working on it. They're also doing heavy vegetation management, simply cutting the trees back from the lines or cutting trees back so they can't fall on a line. That's one of the simplest techniques that people can really understand. And when we had the meeting that I was at Maili, there were people that came up with their list of either trees on lines or leaning poles, and we went back to address those as well. So yeah, just getting that stuff done ahead of time is going to make it less likely we're going to have to do a PSPS.
Yeah, no, we had a meeting with DOT and DTS last night in Nanakuli, and we, obviously Ed Sniffen is doing an amazing job at basically cutting everything back and helping out. I guess my question though is, going a little further, is there any thought about moving those poles off Farrington, or at least some of them? I mean, I'm just saying they're basically right where Wynwood, and we know exactly where they are, but if any of those fell, that would just block entire ingress and egress into the coast. So what is you guys thought on that? I mean, obviously I know that's millions of dollars.
It is, and it's obviously been a long time, issue that the community has asked about and that we've looked at. I think we're open to everything. One of the things we're really working on right now is federal funding. We're successful in obtaining $95 million in federal funds to help with wildfire safety. That's matched by funds that customers pay. And we're starting to do that work right now. We've got 3 other pretty ambitious applications in for federal funds that would look at exactly the kinds of things that you're talking about, either moving, undergrounding, reinforcing, doing something so that in the event of a storm, heavy winds, that those wouldn't end up being obstacles to escape.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. I know it's a lot to ask, but it's it's without saying that if those poles got off Farrington, that it would be a way safer circumstance for the coast. I do also think that along those lines, I'm sure you guys are aware, I'm not sure if those are all your poles or if it's Hawaiian Telecom, but there's tons of lines that are all dead. I mean, there's just things that should just come off the pole already because it's not even functioning. And so I'm sure you guys are looking through that. I think the last thought I had in regards to federal funding is we did talk heavily about the need for us to have about $150 million to basically fix the Navy portion of Kolekole Pass, which I'm sure you guys are in favor of because that would be our only way out if any of these poles fell down or if we weren't able to get in and out of the coast. Would you guys be in favor of writing letters in support? I'm meeting with Senator Schatz next week about all of this.
Sure. I mean, that's one of the, I'm glad you brought this up because people have asked us, okay, well, how am I lucky enough to be on the PSPS map? What did you look at when you determined who was on these maps? And for the west side, this egress issue was one of the key criteria that we looked at. You know, can people get out of there if they need to? And so we would absolutely be willing to work with you on projects like that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much, Mr. Kelly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. Councilmember DeSantis Tam.
Thank you. I noticed that some of the maps include military areas, Schofield Barracks, Lualule Naval. To what extent has this plan been discussed with the military folks?
We have discussed it with them.
Okay.
I'd say they're probably as excited as anyone else is about this.
Okay, understood. This may be a little bit of a silly question, but if power is shut off and there's high winds and the risk of wildfires, are we to expect people to make sure that they have a battery-powered radio and their cell phones are all charged just so they get notifications in case of a worst-case scenario if you can't turn on your TV?
I hope they are. Part of our outreach to communities has been, our emergency preparedness handbook and all of the information. You go to City Mill and you can see all that. But yeah, I think things like making sure you actually do have a radio that works. We're reminding people that they can, it used to be when the power was out, people would be, oh, the lights are out, refrigerator. The first thing I can't charge my cell phone. And we actually are reminding people you can charge your cell phone in your car. And we've been handing out car phone chargers just so people are not going to be cut off. But along those lines, we've also been working, and this is something that HPD, HFD have asked about, working with cell phone providers to make sure that their towers are going to be functional in the event of a PSPS as well.
And then last question, this is sort of a bigger picture question. So I recall that during previous, take that into account just to make sure that if we turn it off to the leeward coast, there's not a cascading effect elsewhere.
Sure, and again, this goes to we want, we're already looking at what that would mean for the system stability if we shut off certain circuits. We want to do this in a very deliberate way. We want to make sure that by turning off the power to keep people safe from a wildfire, we then don't create another public safety or economic challenge on the other side. So that is something actually that our power supply area has looked at, and making sure that we know exactly what's going to happen when we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeSantis Tam. Councilmember Say.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Kelly. Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
I'm just of the thought, with most of the wildfires that do occur on Oahu is tied to the 138 kVs lines rather than the 48 kilowatt lines. You know why the 138 goes throughout the range or the mountains, and I hope the public understands that. And thank you very much for the opportunity of visiting both plants, Kahe and Waiau. So is the cause going to be the 138 kV lines that go through the mountains, or is it the ones that I see in Palolo, Makiki, Mo'ilili, Makali? And that's not wildfire to me, because you're in an urban core.
Right, that's why you're not in a PSPS. I think where we're most concerned about the potential for a fire starting are what we call the distribution lines, the ones that go through neighborhoods or maybe cut through the woods someplace, that are the lower voltage lines that serve, neighborhoods, but that can start a fire probably, and they also tend to be the high voltage transmission lines. Those are usually big steel structures, and those are built to withstand pretty strong winds with wooden poles. They get old. That's why we replace tens of thousands of them every year. That's why we're inspecting them so closely right now.
Because, Jim, the other issue was that I would like to follow what Councilwoman Tupola stated. You folks did replace a lot of poles in the urban core, which is great, but no one took down the old ones.
Double poles, is that what we're talking about?
Right, double poles.
Yes.
And that's a blight.
Yes. And
So-
we have a plan, and I just
Okay.
saw it was the Public Utilities Commission is holding us to our plan to remove the double poles over the next several years, and we have a pretty ambitious plan for getting that done, and we actually hope that we can do it possibly in concert with some of this work that we're doing to do pole inspections or replace older ones, because yes, we know it is a blight.
And just one thought for me, I'm really happy that you've been sharing this information. But don't you feel sometimes you share too much information and it backfires on you with cybersecurity? I don't know, let's be honest. All that you're presenting this afternoon is being shared with those that may become cyber hackers. And utilities is one of the bigger ones in the whole country. So that's why I just didn't want to ask any more questions. It's just that I wanted to say thank you. You've done a great job for the residents of Palolo, Manoa, and Makiki, and that's the valleys. And just keep up the good work. And finally, if you need a letter of support before the Public Utility Commission in some rate increases, I'll be more than happy to write a letter of support.
Okay, Shannon, did you write that down? All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Say. Any further questions? Councilmember Tupola?
Thanks so much, Chair. Just two more. So in the news, they covered that you guys got $95 million from the feds. I'm sure that was possibly for statewide improvements. I do not know. Could you basically summarize maybe what amounts of money are being used for this island and in what cases or what improvements?
Sure, I can get you the exhaustive list. And to be clear, so it's $95 million came from the feds. The Public Utilities Commission earlier this year, so with the feds, you got to match it. So we had to match it with $95 million of customer money. It works out to a little less than, I don't know, it's probably about 50 cents a month on the typical bill. So it's $180 million that is spent on all the 5 islands that we serve. I'm sure you can understand why a special emphasis was placed on Maui with some of that money. After the wildfire, this funding was announced by President Biden in Lahaina when he visited. So that's a pretty good chunk, but that's just a start. And that's why we're going after about $400 million more that is going to be, and it'll be going to all the things that we've been talking about here, replacing poles, maybe replacing, as we've done in Lahaina already, replacing wood poles with steel poles, undergrounding some areas where it makes sense, this covered conductor that I was talking about, doing more aggressive vegetation management, not just trimming back albesia trees, but literally taking them out of the ground. That kind of work, which is, obviously very expensive, but also a lot of technology, getting more of the weather stations I'm talking about, more cameras, more sensors on the system so that we can detect within a split second whether there's a disturbance on a line, and make sure that we know what's going on in our system.
So to be clear, the 95 was used for Maui then?
No, no, no.
The
It's used
180?
for all 5 islands. It's
Okay.
180 million, and I can get you the breakdown on what we're going to be spending it on Oahu.
That'd be great.
Sure.
I think my last question is, in this PSPS model, do you guys already have a plan or any hopes to compensate residents if they are financially affected or have to move out, or if they, over a long period of time, again, we don't know the length of what it might take, that they might be compensated?
No, we don't have any plans to compensate people.
And that's part of what's written on your website and what you guys have been sharing with the community?
That's what people, yeah, we've actually gotten quite a few questions about that.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Tupola. Mr. Kelly, if it's possible, I'd just like to ask a few more follow-up questions.
Sure.
We talked about, the PSPS and how it was shut down. I was wondering if not just impacting, cell phones and communication, but it will also impact our water. So if the water is using pumps, what's the communication with BWS on what happens if there's no power for long periods of time? How does it affect the water pumps and getting the necessary resources that way to our residents?
I was remiss in not mentioning that Ernie Lau has been at all of our meetings with the fire department, police department. So we've been working really closely with BWS on this because they obviously have some concerns about it. I think and I don't want to speak for those folks, I can speak that we've been working really closely with them, and I believe that they feel like they have a plan, what really would help them and would help everybody else. They would like as much notice as they can get, because then they can potentially move a generator in place, they can do some things that are going to make it easier to then restart the system when the power comes back on. So we're working very closely with BWS, I think, and they know where all of their potential equipment is. It's going to be affected.
Thank you very much. We know that Chief Lau has always been so helpful in every aspect to make sure that our community is safe, but I want to make sure that that's a conversation that's happening, because we know how important the water sources are to our communities.
Yes.
Last 2 questions. You talked about cameras, and I'm going to combine these so we can finish up. I wanted to know, you mentioned cameras in your presentation, and then again here trying to acquire more. How many are we looking at? Where are they? And then the last thing was, with this slide here, when you had the inputs and criteria for considering a PSPS,
yes,
you mentioned that we're not just you're choosing to not just follow the red flag warning. And then there was these 3 parts, but it seemed a little vague to me. If you could clarify, what are you looking at then, other than if the humidity is relatively below 45% and the winds are at a certain speed? Are the cameras, what would get you from one day that there's no need to do the PSPS to over the next 2 days? What will be the criteria to get to that so that we can inform the residents that this is going to happen?
Sure, and I've learned more about meteorology than I knew before the last several months. My understanding is that it's easier to forecast heavy wind gusts. The Weather Service can give you a sense earlier on that there's something coming and that the wind gust might be of the speed that we'd be looking at doing a PSPS. So that would be something that would be, and again, they're fairly rare during the summertime. So when you see that they're coming, that then gives us the heads up that, okay, we got to look at that. I know everybody has asked us, and HFD has asked us for this, and HPD, everybody wants the specific exact list of things that are going to trigger a PSPS, and I can't stand here and give that to you. That's why I added in there that every situation is unique. Honestly, I think we could have, as they did in California's, there could be wildfires that happen outside of a PSPS area. There could be situations where the wind speeds are not to the point that we would do a PSPS, and yet we might see an impact on our system. So this is a first for us, and we're gonna just do the best we can. We want to make sure the public, though, had at least a general idea of what we were looking at.
Thank you very much. Members, any further questions?
Can I add one more thing that I wanted to
Sure.
mention, because I know you'll hear about this from your constituents as well. So when I showed the first slide with the colorful map and all the things that are going on, right now we've set up the grid on Oahu in all of the areas that we've identified as being at higher risk for wildfires. We've set it up to be much more sensitive to any kind of disruption, so that if there's a fault on a line, again, a tree brushes up against a line, it's going to go off automatically very quickly, where previously we had our system set up so that it would try to turn back on. Maybe the branch fell down and it would constantly always try to reclose a circuit that opened momentarily. We're not doing that anymore. If that happens, we now have to send someone out to look at that area and make sure, hey, did a line come down? Is there a tree leaning on a line? And so that's going to cause, and it already has, more outages and outages that last longer. And I know in Mililani in particular, there've been, that's been the case. Other areas as well. As we get this more equipment, more technology on our system, I'm hopeful that that's not going to continue at the same rate it is right now. But again, we're early on in this, so that's one of the steps we're taking to keep the public safe, is to make our system be more skewed towards safety and less toward reliability, which is a very big change for the culture of our company. And I'm hoping I can indulge everybody's patience on that as we work through this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilmember C.
Jim, one final thought. Is there also a capital improvement project plans for the replacement of our underground lines that occurred in Chinatown? It was pretty devastating.
Yes.
And my point is that, is the HEI submitting a rate increase for those type of projects? Because you don't want to have it happen every year that you may have a shortage or whatever it may be, the cables, etc. But the point is that because there's so much demand of growth in the primary urban center also, I don't know, sometimes.
No, and we, in a little while, I think are going to go through some of the steps that we're taking around Chinatown. I just want to be clear. I mean, we have a budget every year to do improvements, expansions, upgrades, repairs, replacements. And so we've had a long-term Chinatown program in place. Now it's a question of accelerating, and so it isn't spread out over, say, 10 years and getting it done a lot faster. But it isn't the kind of thing that we're going to have to go to the PUC and say, geez, we need some money for that. Councilmember.
Councilmember DeSantis Tam.
Thank you. And I think we're going to get to this in the the 2:30 hearing.
Yes, that actually, Councilmember C, as I was mentioning in the PIT committee with Committee Chair Tupola, they'll be discussing more of that. But thank you for asking. Members, any further questions? If not, we are in discussion. Any further discussion? No. I want to thank you guys, Hiko, for being here. I know that in the upcoming future, we will probably have more questions as it affects our community members and as they come to us with questions that relate specifically to our designated areas. But I do want to thank you and just let the members know that they actually came to me and they were the ones that were proactive. And had we had the time, we would have had this earlier before the shutdowns, the PSPS time period began, but this is what worked out for all of our schedules. So I want to thank you for, taking the first step and doing all that you can to do your due diligence and getting out the information. I appreciate the efforts that you shared as you're working with the different agencies, our partners, and hopefully working together we can make sure that the least amount of not burden, but inconvenience is placed on our residents while ensuring that our communities are safe. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Ted. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, this brings us to the end of our agenda today. Mahalo everyone for being here and for your participation. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.